Hi, everyone. This is Kenneth, and project lead of Mocha Network, and really great to be on the stage together with Alex. Like today, we made a announcement, and
Yeah, it's been amazing. Like, first of all, congrats. It's been a long time in the making. So congrats to Animoca for the chain announcement this morning.
yeah. So we've been cooking together for a while, and but we are very excited to be announcing the Mocha chain, the L1 chain for digital identity. And today, we really want to talk about the topic on digital identity, and not really just sharing about what we're doing, but the observation that we've seen in the market and why digital identity is actually coming to be the big meta.
Yeah, and maybe we can also cover like a small demo, just show how easy it is to build a decentralized identity on top of Mocha chain. And maybe we can also get into some first use cases.
Yeah. So our really bold statement is we do believe an open identity network would take over big tech data monopoly. And we have already seen big tech taking very defensive play recently and adopting blockchain technology, zero knowledge proof. And this domination on data monopoly, having Google, Facebook, now Meta, and all these big tech basically centralizing all these data in federated identity. And we see major problems here, basically three major problems and three major opportunities. One is very similar to the argument and the debate on open AI versus closed AI, and whether a open source platform is going to be successful or a closed source platform. And our argument is so far we haven't seen a scalable open platform on digital identity. And all of the digital identity and data are basically centralized, what we so-called the federated identity approach. And what's the difference is basically a centralized federated identity is all controlled by a single party and single conglomerate. And a open identity network basically allowing different kinds of data issuer, owner, and user to actually own their data and able to verify their data anywhere with any apps. The second point is the data right now, even between companies and apps, is not interoperable at all. And I think Alex and I have been in the data business for almost like 10 years now, like back in the Web2 days, and also did a bit in AI. And I personally have been that painful data broker business, basically to build clean rooms, do data mapping, and so on. And the fact and the reality is just the data is not interoperable in Web2. Third is if you need to have two companies to work together or to share data, basically for every single data partnership, you need to sign a contract, a data processing agreement. You need to negotiate on getting the private API and like the hashing logic and so on. Our argument is basically it doesn't need to be that way. And including monetization and data matching and data sharing in a privacy preserved way can be way more scalable. So here is a very interesting map on, want to share with you what we normally don't see as an identity business are actually identity businesses. Very obvious is Google, Apple, Meta, when they're actually in the advertising business, they're actually in the identity business. It's just a very centralized, federated identity and making a lot of money by monetizing your data, your identity. But you can already see big tech taking a very defensive play now. Like recently, Google Wallet announced that they're adopting a blockchain technology, zero knowledge proof for age verification. Apple obviously followed suit and then basically announcing they're going to do the same. And what that really means is we actually see that there's a very obvious urgency for big tech companies and also non-big tech companies, retail companies, travel companies coming into identity. And to expand that, like in the tech business, when we see that LinkedIn is probably like a job board platforms, but they are actually identity business. You see that LinkedIn basically starts selling their profiles and their profile verification to external parties, and they monetize from it. You also see like retail companies such as Marriott Bonvoy, arguably basically the largest hotel chains in the world, allowing their cruise line and other partners to verify the Bonvoy points, Bonvoy status, and that again is an identity business. And again, with AI, with the emerging AI adoption, with AI agents and all that, there's an increasing urgency for proof of humanity. And you see WorldCoin basically raising a bunch of money, very aggressive in the market. But recently, you see Ribbit actually leading a round, investing in the 200 million round at $2 billion in Persona, specifically for verifying AI, whether that is a human. And also, you have seen ACCNC also publish a thesis paper, basically like the intersection of crypto and AI is basically digital identity. And you go to banking use cases, you applaud, and basically the very high-profile, recognizable identity business around banking. There is more and more that we are seeing, and what we want to say here is what we believe in, what we're building here, is we are able to build a unification layer to allow all these companies to issue data to a unified identity. Anyone, any companies can be a data issuer, and at the end, the user owns their data, pushing to storage that is encrypted, truly owned by user, truly self-sovereign. No matter which company is going to bankruptcy or whatever, the data will still be owned by the user, and the data can still be verified in a privacy-preserved way. What's interesting is what we're building here is basically the end-to-end digital identity infrastructure that enable any kinds of identity protocols to start from scratch, start from zero, and spin up a identity protocol right away. And we will share a lot more with you later on in this presentation. So I will make it as more conversational here.
Yeah, let's do it.
And bring Alex in. We don't want this to be like a boring, one-sided conversation. But if you look at the map here, basically why people have been paying Meta and paying Google a lot of money to process data and to target users is basically they're ring fencing and building walled gardens around their data. And the only way to reach their users and to verify their data is actually relying on the data broker. So what's the worst case scenario that you would actually foresee, Alex?
I mean, there's a lot of different examples, but before I get into it, like a first look at the audience, like how many of the people here in the audience have heard of the identity triangle, like the ability of verifiers, issuers, and and holders to communicate with each other. So the idea is that you have like an app that has valuable credentials, like for example, here, booking.com, and another app that would actually benefit from accessing that credential, not being able to communicate with each other. They have modes, they don't want to share data. So both of them rely on an intermediary, which most likely is going to be Google or Google AdSense, to profile the user, to say, this is actually a user that is an active traveler, or this is a user that is an active rideshare user. And this kind of setup, in our opinion, is intrinsically unsafe and also intrinsically inefficient. So one of the reasons why it's intrinsically unsafe is because you actually create centralized data honeypots. You create these giant databases. I mean, we all heard of the recent 16 billion, right?
Password leakage.
Yeah, passwords and accounts that got leaked.
Customer service agents are getting full access to your personal information.
Yeah, manual interventions, data duplication, fake inputs. Like, there's so many things that can go wrong with federated identities that just rely on a single point of truth. that is very easy to fake. And then on the next slide, like it's also intrinsically inefficient because you create these data monopolies that don't really have an interest in making sure that the maximum economic value of data is actually is raised. So Google will never have an interest in sharing detailed profile inputs on you or on anyone here in the audience, because they monetize the abstract advertisement profile that you have. But maybe a provider like Uber would actually benefit from a single booking, or like the information of a single booking.
Yeah, so I think one thing as well is all of the data are highly fragmented and not interoperable. So imagine a world where you want to basically, if you're using the same Google login, same email, for instance, for Uber and probably for Spotify. Let's say if Spotify wants to verify your Uber data, even you're the same user, it's almost impossible to do that unless like you're basically logging in front of like the companies. And I was in Korea, I checked into the hotel, like if you're an airline's like high diamond tier status, you get 10% off. The only way they asked me to verify that is to log in into my airline app in front of the front desk in terms of to verify that of that status.
And show it manually, right?
And show it manually. But the question is, how do you make it way more scalable? The data are highly verifiable, but then not exposing any kinds of private data for whoever wants to verify that data. And we are proposing here to completely remove the data broker in the process and allowing app to app, user to user, business to customer, customer to business, agent to user, user to agent direct verifications by giving them a digital identity, a self-sovereign identity, self-sovereign data storage, allow the user to generate zero-knowledge proof based on the data that they encrypted, and allow that zero-knowledge proof to be verified on-chain, and basically working with any apps on any chains, including Web2 apps. So today, this morning, actually, we have already announced Mocha Chain. Mocha Chain is an L1 EVM chain with decentralized data storage, native CKTLS, basically removing your dependency on centralized data issuer. You can basically take ownership of your data, on-chain zero-knowledge proof verification. And just to show a little bit here on the news, basically catching up on our announcement, we're very excited about walking you through what that really is.
Yeah, and maybe me as the founder of ZK.me, as one of the protocols that is building on top of Mocha Chain, can talk a little bit about how we use the primitives that Mocha Chain provides already now on DevNet in order to remove some of those trust assumptions. So in general, Mocha Chain consists of two big product lines. One is the chain itself with integrated decentralized storage that is controlled by a self-sovereign identity wallet, and an SDK that makes access to that identity possible. The SDK is called AIR, which stands for Account, Identity, and Reputation, which then allows both the user, the consumer, and the provider of data to interact with the chain in a very seamless way. So 5 different steps in order to remove trust assumptions, and I can quickly guide through them. So the baseline is typically the implementation of a so-called self-sovereign identity. So removing the data storage and the data ownership, legally speaking, from the data broker to the user. So in all of the setups on Mocha Chain, on ZK.me, legally speaking, the user owns their own data because it's encrypted by the data through their own private key. So your key, your identity. That's always the baseline. Then the second one would be the implementation of what we call selective disclosure, or the ability to take schemas that might include private identifiable information like your age, your email, your address, and then abstracting that into something that is just a yes or no statement. So for example, if you're a lending protocol and you want to underwrite an anonymous wallet, you might want to check the user's real-world credit score without disclosing the private information of the user. So you use zero-knowledge proofs that are generated locally in order to just get a yes or no statement, like, yes, this user is credit-worthy.
And the credit score can be set with very flexibly with a threshold of above certain score without exposing the raw credit score.
Yeah. And then the next primitive that we use is the chain itself. So the ability to not only generate the proofs, but then also have them verified in a decentralized manner, with also the ability to monetize directly on chain. So there's no need to set up like letters of intent, data processing agreements, SaaS agreements. You just go on chain, you ask the user, can I have this information of you? The user says yes or no, and then directly with that confirmation, a payment on chain happens for the verification. And then, which is probably the most exciting primitive for us as an issuer, is the ability to integrate data sources that are not permissioned by the issuer itself. So for example, at ZKMe, we leverage zkTLS in order to get accredited investor status directly from a social security platform or the IRS or similar data sources. And even if that data source does not allow or does not agree to the consumption of that data, the user has the ability to retrieve the data and make it available on the chain. So you can think of pretty much any data source that exists out there can be put on chain by the user.
It can be your Binance trading volume or your bank account balance. Basically.
Yeah, and it could also be like really exotic things, like your genome data, right? Like if I'm able to prove that I'm O positive, then maybe I can get a special invite to donate blood, like very exotic case.
And by the way, we really have a genetics company, which is like NASDAQ listed, that will be issuing genetics data on the Mocha chain.
Some alpha here. Okay, and then obviously, in order to make this available on all different ecosystems, there's also an oracle included that is currently live on 27 chains that allows you to take those credentials and make them natively available on smart contracts or on APIs, depending on how centralized the solution is. And here, a very quick demo how ZKMe uses the solution. So in the very first part, you saw the creation of a schema. Then you see a user interacting with a lending protocol to disclose, for example, the age, and then the zero-knowledge proof generation, all within a native widget that runs in the browser as a JavaScript. And then as soon as the selective disclosure is approved, you would see it disclosed on chain. So you have full transparency over all credentials that are created, obviously fully anonymized, but everything is traceable and will exist in perpetuity as long as the chain runs.
So what we really believe in is not to build another killer app in Web3 and to spend a lot of money on user acquisition and acquiring millions of users. We built the SDK in a way that account and identity are fully embedded as a native user experience within existing major user-based apps. You have one example here that is already integrated in the largest loyalty program in South Korea, basically the second largest company in Korea with 28 million KYC users already have an embedded account and identity. SK Telecom can issue data. That data can be verifiable by their 28,000 merchants. And then you got OneFootball. There's a football app with 200 million monthly active users that are able to verify cross-app, for example, verifying SK users over and provide benefits, providing access to them. And all that user can also access RWA yield, which is gated by compliance, KYC, and all that, would be using ZKMe as an issuer.
Yeah, I think that's the true beauty of the approach, is that we actually target existing user bases rather than having the approach of creating your own user base. Everything is whitelisted and runs within these Web2 SaaS businesses. I'm actually most excited about the OneFootball app. Like there's a FIFA World Cup coming to the US next year. Week would be nice. And can't wait to see Mocha Network in action within that app. And just a quick shout out for the last one. ZKME just went live with exactly that solution on Plume Network. So if any one of you wants to engage with RWA-Fi, you can do that with a reusable KYC. So you only KYC once, and then you have access to all kinds of RWA products directly on-chain without having to repeat it.
So that's it. And then feel free to scan the QR code on your left to know more about Mocha Chain. And then we are also hosting a hacker house at an amazing venue at Cannes at EFCC. Basically, developers will be going there using our test tag to build identity protocols and sleep there for a few days. And feel free to come and workshop with us.
That's the first time the chain will be truly publicly used.
Yeah, very excited about that. Thank you, and I hope you guys are excited about the boring topic, digital identity. But we're very geeky about it, and hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you.